Welcome to today's Strengths Conversation. I'm Jane Liebecker, coming to you from Seattle, Washington. I am an Eddie Villa certified coach specializing in the Clifton Strengths.
I am Monetta Fields, joining you from Laurel, Maryland. I joined Jane in that title. I am an Eddie Villa certified coach using the Gallup Strengths as an incredible tool in our coaching business. And our guest today is
Hi, I'm Charlie Wright, and I am not an Eddie Villa certified coach, although I live with one. And because of that, that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Love
awesome.
it.
And so, Charlie, can you share with us what your dominant domain is?
Absolutely. I am a strategic thinker, and that means I love to do things in a way that honor my desire to think, create, and learn. It's not and or for most people because I have 6 strategic strengths, so I have to create and
Wow,
learn.
Oh,
that's pretty intense.
You betcha.
And so, how did you learn about strengths, Charlie?
Well, it was really pretty simple. Back, I don't know how it was, maybe 3, 4 years ago, maybe. I'm not exactly sure the timeline, but Eddie Villa was a speaker at a doTERRA leadership convention. And I was watching it virtually, and being a strategic thinker, I'm there doing something else at the same time. And all of a sudden, he got what are called a chair turn. Now, I work with actors, and a chair turn means when somebody does something or says something that hits you here, you go, that chair better turn and pay attention. So he got a chair turn, and here we are today.
That's awesome. And so once you had your chair turn, what did it feel like once you actually learned about your strengths?
Well, that's a tough, not a tough question, but an insightful question,
Okay.
because I learned that there are reasons that I need to be by myself sometimes. There are reasons that I go down rabbit holes. There are reasons why I don't relate to people so well,
Mhm.
you know. And because of that, by learning my strengths, I learned that I could talk to Jane or you, Monetta, and be coherent most of the time and try to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, because strategic is basically I'm in my head all the time,
Mhm.
and sometimes I have to come up for air.
Hey, Charlie, we're talking to you today about your strength, intellection. Where
Oh,
is that in your top 10?
that is my number 3, and it's surrounded by my number 5, which is learner, and my number 1, which is achiever. Um, Intellection is a very interesting strength, and because I have it so high, it basically all my strengths interact with one another in a way that make me who I am. Intellection, we examine facts, we read data, we look at events. And then my achiever, which is number 1, my learner helps me go deeper, and my achiever, if I come up for air, allows me to do something. And that doesn't always happen. But it really does, they all work together, and I find that being a stone cold strategic thinker, besides needing time to live to be alone, I need my intellection gives me time to reflect. So I'll listen to a podcast, I'll listen
Mhm.
to a book, I'll listen to music, and that'll just generate an idea. And one of the things I do every day is I take a 2, 3, sometimes 4 mile walk by myself because that's when I can think, you know. And then from there, I create like just a 60-second or 30 to 60-second video that I post on social media about whatever I'm thinking about that day. Now, does it matter to anybody? Probably not. Um, but at least I get it out.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. And
Yeah.
so for those who may not know what intellection is according to Gallup's description, I'm going to read that, but you've already beautifully described it. So, but I'm just going to say what Gallup has to say about it. People exceptionally talented in the intellectual theme are characterized by their intellectual activity. They are introspective and appreciate intellectual discussions. So you shared that with us in terms of your going live after you've had time to think. And we have to respect that about those who have intellection. That time to think is crucial. So thank you for beautifully updating us on that.
Well, I'm just going to add one more thing. There is another strength called activator, and my wife has that at number 1. So that means that she flies the plane before it's built. And a lot of times she doesn't understand that I not only have to build the plane, I have to build in all the things that might go wrong and then get in the pilot seat and then fly the plane. So it's important to know the difference in people's strengths so you know how to react to them.
Right.
So I can go to her and say, give me a moment. Or this is actually very, very funny because it happens almost every day. She says, okay, it's time to go. Then she'll sit down. And 15 minutes later, I'm ready to leave. Because I got to do everything that I got to do before I open the door, and it just helps you understand how people react to different situations.
For sure.
It really does. So you already told us that your number 1 strength is achiever and your number 5 strength is learner.
Yes.
Right. So
we were going to hop over to how you use your intellection, but you've given us that already. So Jane, you were going to ask about the combination of the two, right?
Yeah. So how do your achiever and learner influence your intellection?
Well, that's a very in-depth question because I'm a strategic thinker, which means that I have to go down that rabbit hole. But basically, intellection is all about getting disparate data and how looking at it and not researching, but just figuring out where it fits in the pantheon of life. And learner then takes whatever small piece of that is and says, okay, you need to learn all there is to know about that, and then, well, here's a perfect example. I have played poker in my life. All right. So I watched it on TV. I said, oh, I can do that, and then my intellection says I can do that. My learner says, oh, you better read these 14 books about how to play. And then my achiever says, why don't we go to the World Series of Poker and play in that event? And damned if we didn't. And at that point, I was good enough to, play in an event that I really shouldn't have been in, but it was brilliantly fun, because I got to play with like James Cameron and all these other people who I would never have met in my life if that hadn't happened. But all of them, they all play together, they all play night. All right, I work with actors, okay? And one of the things I explained to them, I said, look, you don't know what a strategic thinker is, but I am one. And anytime I bring a new actor into the fold, I say, I would really like you to take your 34 strengths test, and they go, why? I said, because then I know how to react to you. You know how to react to me. If I ask you to do something, you'll know that I've thought about it and that it's in your best interest that you do whatever it is I'm asking. So it's the type of thing that as you learn what your strengths are and how they interact with other people, like if you're a relationship builder, which I don't understand at all, believe me, I understand influences because I know what they're about, but relationship builder, that's just so far out of my league, it's ridiculous. Why do you want to hug somebody? Come on, what's the point of that? But anyway, it's the type of thing that once you learn who you are and how other people react to you, and you pick up on key words, and strengths have key words, right? You understand like, oh, this person's an influencer, this person's a relationship builder, and strategic, what's the other one? Executor. I'm sorry, I didn't know. See, I'm not a coach, so I don't know that. But if you understand where they're coming from, you can it's not get what you want, because that's not right. It's you can relate to them in a way that they'll understand, so that you can come together and work together, right? And that to me is the biggest plus of this whole strengths revolution, which I think it really is.
I agree.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well said.
Thank you. You know, as
So-
strategic thinkers, we think about these things a lot.
Yes. If you had to tell us what it is you really like about having intellection as a strength, what would you say about that?
I have intellection, ideation, learner, you name it, I've got it up in my top 10. I just like how it allows me to, oh, and I have focus at number 6. I don't know if that matters, but it does to me.
Yes, of
Um,
course.
Absolutely.
I look at ideation as a strength that allows me to look at something or research something and come up with an idea that it doesn't fit with the world. But I know, because I have focus and I have other strengths that surround it, that they'll catch up,
Mhm.
you know? I'm just like 2 years ahead of time, you know? I mean, think about Bitcoin, you know? I bought into Bitcoin way, way before anybody even knew what the heck it was.
Well, he already answered the what would you
Yep.
say to someone who's on the fence
Yep.
about taking the Gallup Strengths
Yeah.
Assessment?
So it's just, we just have to wrap it up when he
Oh.
comes back.
You know,
Yeah.
and from there, we need to figure out how do we make that really good idea work? You know, and that's where we leave the executors and the influencers to take the torch.
They can take, that's right. You make the plans.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Charlie, this has been an excellent conversation. I was going to ask you, what would you say to somebody who's sitting on the fence about taking the assessment? But you basically already answered that question for us.
Mhm.
You know, like you know how to respond to somebody.
Yeah.
You can speak a common language, right?
Yeah, it you know, it doesn't always work that way, Jane. Because if I'm playing in my head and I'm like, I don't even hear you, you know, then it won't work at all. But I have to use what I know about myself to say, okay, I need to pay attention to Jane right now because she's saying something important, you know. But there are times where I'll just like, see ya. I'll
Wow.
be back later.
Yes, that is so cool. Thank you for sharing so much insight and wisdom regarding how a strategic mind actually processes and works. And I think because of this, lots of relationships can be better. So thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome, Monetta. And one thing, well, my final takeaway would be nice to your strategic thinkers. They have your best interest at heart. They just don't know how to explain it.
Got it.
All
Love it.
right. Words of wisdom from a strategic thinker. Okay. Thanks, Charlie.
All
Was
righty,
really,
take care.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.